Welcome to the Feminine Truth Podcast with Mary Miranda, a place where you can reconnect with your wild, cyclical, and fierce truth. I am Mary Miranda, a mentor, coach, healer, and intuitive. I guide women on a journey of remembrance, reconnection, and embodiment of who they are, their essence, power, and truth by reawakening the power of their feminine energy, womb, and menstrual cycles. Join me each week to indulge in raw, unedited, and unfiltered topics to help women own and step into their divine feminine truth and become unshakable, unapologetic, and bold in who they truly are. Let's jump into today's conversation. Welcome to another episode of the Feminine Truth Podcast. Today, I'm very excited to have such an amazing woman who is here from Chicago like me. Her name is Sarah Taylor. Hi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for welcoming me and having me join you this afternoon. It's pretty exciting. So I love talking and small talk with women. So this is just right up my alley and it's so necessary. So I'm excited.
Yes, and we're also I'm going to let you know that this podcast might be a little bit of Spanglish. We're going to infuse our own flavors, a few things, because it's just who we are. And I have been dying to have a conversation where I speak the way I speak in the conversation. I switch back and forth. So hopefully this is going to be the first episode of many where I interview women where we are speaking Spanglish in a way. So.
In our comfort zone, right?
Yes. Okay, so Sarah, how did you get here? Tell us a little bit about your journey that led you to where you are today and who you are today.
Yeah, so my journey came from a place of need and necessity and a place of trauma. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I call it survivor of domestic violence personally as far as to me, but I'm also had witnessed domestic violence growing up in my household. So I've been around a lot of volatile situations, let's say that. But within my own experience, this is how I decided to launch a nonprofit organization to help women like myself with similar stories find a way to facilitate healing for themselves and for those within their community and their household. So my story came from a place when once I closed that chapter with an individual that I was involved in, I saw myself in kind of like in isolation. I still had to deal with that truth that I allowed someone for so long to violate me physically and mentally and emotionally, that seeking healing was something that was kind of in my life at that time was impossible in a sense. There's something I just have to deal with and take it one day at a time. And healing was something that's going to get to later on in life, But I noticed that when I had that philosophy, that mindset, I was jumping from relationship to relationship with the same baggage, the same trauma. So I noticed I can't continue like this. I need to find some resolve and some healing. So I did get some therapy, but nothing was still working, was not impacting me, and wasn't connecting, right? As I look at this, it wasn't connecting. So I knew, you know what? I've always been that person. Look, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna have my own I'm not a perfectionist in myself. I feel like I don't have all of the answers, but I have some answers. So I dug in deep within myself. Let me just start with just something I can create a small group with myself, small group of women. Let's talk about our issues and see how this goes. And sure enough, I started YO SOY ELLA and it blossomed to what it is today. And I just never thought, within my own isolation, that so many people experience very similar stories, very similar journeys and challenges as I did. So YO SOY ELLA is still here since 2012, still here doing the same work of connecting and providing a place for women to feel safe and find a place where women can feel belong.
Oh my God, we're 2012. That's when I left my toxic, emotionally, psychologically, verbally abusive relationship. I was never physically abused, but the aftermath of that relationship was so impactful for me that I was so asleep throughout my life, 30 years of being asleep. And that relationship was what awakened me. Yeah. I realized that I had to look within myself and start healing. And the sad thing is that I knew no one. No one would understand me. No one would understand what I had gone through. Because physical abuse, it's pretty intense on its own. But the abuse that we also, and you went through it, the emotional, psychological, verbal, like, oh, I got chills. A lot of people don't consider that abuse because there's no evidence and they don't know the impact in your soul, in your body, in your mind, in your health. So I started reading this book, Mujeres que aman demasiado, in Spanish. In Spanish, which I don't really read in Spanish, but I found it somehow at Barnes and Noble. I got it. I started reading. I was like, oh my God, how did I not know this? And my household was not an abusive household, physically abusive. Well, like, chancla culture. I grew up with the chancla cinturón, typical stuff in Mexico. But it was not like I was abused on purpose or just because my dad was a drunk, nothing like that, like nothing like that. So I just couldn't really connect the dots. But then I would see some patterns and I would see why I kept attracting the same type of person, just a different name, different face, but it was like the same man in a way. It's like, oh my God, how am I getting the same man so many times? So I wish I would have found you then. I didn't know anything. And part of the book is that they had like a club or some support in Mexico. I couldn't find it. I wrote them. You have to tell me this book. Yes, I wrote my story. It's a lot. It's been out for so many years. It's We Make Love Too Much by Robin Norwood. But I read it in Spanish and it was just so impactful for me because it awakened me to know that how your childhood impacts who you are and the people you attract, and it was the first time I was connecting the dots. And I just got obsessed with that stuff and codependency, narcissistic abuse. And that's how I started. So I emailed them my story because I wanted a support. I wanted a support group of women. And they emailed me back, but they never really responded. It was through emails, so you couldn't really feel the connection. So I wish I would have known about your nonprofit organization. So, Yo Soy Ella.
Eso.
What does it mean?
So in English, it translates to I am her or I am she, however using the verb, right? But it's an organization that is for women of color who are in need of any emotional and mental health support. A lot of times I've realized that a lot of things are not always mental. A lot of things are just some emotional instability. A lot of times we get a little bit shooken up emotionally or feel like we've been betrayed. It doesn't serve that a diagnosis, let's say, it doesn't serve like a mental issue. We're just being emotionally betrayed, and we're so fragile emotionally as women as it is. So I had to create something that not only impacts the mental need or the concerns or the mental condition that we have, that our emotional heart conditions and how we process. I always say women process through emotions, men process through logic. One or the other is not bad, but it's just that this is just that way we're made, So I knew that I had to create something that a support system that embodies both the mental and emotional conditions of women, especially women of color who have a little bit more of a challenge in the world that we live in today. So that's just the way. Yeah.
So how do you deal? And this is just a personal question that I have for me. I still struggle considering myself a woman of color.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is because my skin, I'm a Mexican, and a lot of people say I don't look Mexican. So I'm like, oh, but I am. Well, I'm mestiza. I'm part of colonization, So, but I still struggle. Right now that you're saying this for women of color, I'm like, oh, do I fit in? Right away, I was like, I know I fit in, but it's like, how do you deal when someone comes to you and they're like, oh, do I belong? Do I not belong?
You know what? I think women of color is just a buffer statement, But of course, the sense of that comes in with the layers that come behind it is the cultural identity, right? So I'm looking at you today. Typically you do look like a white woman if I not know anything further about you. But if you look at me as a Black woman, if you know anything else about me, that I would look Latina. So we can say that about each other, right? We're both opposites right now. Pero we we definitely come in with women that, you know, have Eurocentric features. And we already knew that if that's something that, you know, you identify with, that is what it is. It's nothing we turn away from, but we welcome all women regardless of color. But we do have a lot of Latina and other women of cultures who do look Eurocentric and kind of have some challenges in identifying, am I a woman of color or not? No, it's all about your ethnicity and where that lies, you know. But, you know, typically we know we get pushback from our own cultures, like, oh, you're too white or you're too morenita, you know how that goes in Latino culture. La más morena always becomes like the black sheep of the family, right? And la más blanquita gets elevated, you know, pretty girl privilege. That's what we call it, right? So it's something that we have to, that's also something we have to work on within our culture too, the colorism. I don't know. I could totally understand.
Definitely. I can see myself having slightly more privilege in so many things because of my skin color, even through dating. That's happened, especially because I am attracted to white men. Somehow I am. And there is a preference to them for me, a Latina versus someone that looks more like a darker skin Latina, which is so unfair. But there's like, I have to own that I do have a little bit more privilege, which sucks and it hurts in a way, you know, because I'm like, oh, but I'm really Mexican. I'm from a ranchito. I'm a pueblito person. Like there's cows, there's there's goats. Like, like I am not, like I didn't grow up rich. I didn't grow up, my environment was very humble. My dad was always here working, and I came here officially to live with him when I was 14. So there was this cultural identity like clash for me. The assimilation, it still hasn't happened. I'm like, some days I'm like, I don't feel Mexican, but I don't feel like from here. Is like, I don't feel, is this belonging, that not fitting in. It's always been within me. And it's just, that's something that I'm still processing. So the past 2 years, I've been working through the colonization, through the privilege, through all of this. And last year, during the Black Lives Matter and everything that happened, it's just so much.
Yeah, it was like the world woke up, you know, a lot of the underlying issues that have been going on from the beginning of time, it just blew up, you know, the carpet lifted and everyone kind of like starts seeing their true selves. Even Latino people of all cultures, Asian people, everyone started looking like, you know, do I have anti-Blackness? Do I have biases? Do I have stigmas? You know, everyone started doing some type of work, you know, to kind of like dismantle some of the systemic racial structures that we've been blinded by, you know, even myself, you know. So it was an interesting year, to say, for the culture.
I also had to look within myself, and I was like, okay, we need to get more trauma informed. We need to get more informed about racism and all of that. So I started like buying courses. I was living in Mexico due to COVID, so I started just diving deeper into that because I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I do have some type of racism, discrimination within me that I was not even acknowledging. So that was like a huge awakening for so many people. And I even think in the mental aspect, a lot of people went through so much stress, so much emotions, like being locked down into a home, confined with others. And also, I do know that domestic violence increased.
Yes, domestic violence has increased. So
that in your organization of women coming, asking for help because of COVID or things that happen at home.
Yeah, women, you know, during the, I always, it was a big, it's like everything exacerbated itself. You know, if it was domestic violence, exacerbated. If it's related to poverty, whatever, every different dynamic when it relates to the world of just human need has exacerbated itself. But when it comes to domestic violence, you know, people say stay at home, safe at home, those slogans, those cliches that were used across social media and the news, home is safe, stay at home. And like that reality does not speak true to a lot of women who are facing domestic violence. And it was a really, really hard year because we just couldn't figure out a way to be present for her or that individual that's undergoing that abuse and be safe at the same time. So we just had to figure out a unique way of kind of like providing telehealth like this, making sure that she was able to speak to someone creating signals, hey, put on una toallita roja at your front porch, una toallita roja, or like a blue ribbon or pink ribbon, code ribbons to let somebody know that you need help. We had to really pivot the way we did work and get really creative on how to pretty much create safety for these people, for this population, I'm sorry. But it was just a weird, unique way. Thankfully, that all the people that we serviced, no one needed severe help, in the sense that no one was hospitalized and, to that extreme, thank God. So most of the domestic violence encounters that we had were manageable, and we're able to have them get some type of resource, a referral source through referral based organizations. But yeah, it was interesting, but overwhelming.
Yeah,
Overwhelming.
I bet. So you guys, so when someone wants to join the organization, or how do they go about being part of Yo Soy Ella?
So yeah, Yo Soy Ella has a sense, we call it members. So we have members, and participants are those who are need, we call it participants or clients who need our support or want to be part of the group work that we do. But if you want to become a member, meaning you want to be part of the guidance committee, right? Help guide women to healing, or be a part of the sisterhood. Let's say all you have to do is reach out to me via email. And I like to connect and talk to women, because you're doing healing work. So that we don't expect you to have everything together, but we also don't, the energy is real. So energy is real. So if you're coming in and you're like I want to save the world, because it's not a good fit for us, because we're dealing with very delicate souls, fragile souls. So we've got to make sure, we don't expect you to have it all together, but we want to make sure that you don't need so much help yourself that you are not in a place to help someone else. So it comes to, we do a lot of talking and getting to know people without a member, but it's easy. All you have to do is email me. I have a welcoming spirit. I have a welcoming policy. Email me. My door is open. If you want to be interested in Yo Soy Ella, I'm sure I'll provide that information after the podcast.
Yes, definitely. That would be something I'm even interested in. Like anyone that gets to listen to this podcast, if they're interested in contributing, because it's so impactful when you help guide a woman, or anyone from that low place, that when they are being abused, to empowerment.
Yes. And you did it right, Mary. Like, because when you're guiding a woman through empowerment, and when you're empowering a woman, you're empowering a community.
Yeah.
That one woman empowers the community, and that one woman empowers her household. If we can get her together, I guarantee you that household will have a lot more ease to existing, and then she'll be able to have more energy and capacity to pour into her community. And I think it's important that we look at it that way. That's what I'm saying, women matter. Communities of women matter. I think women need communities.
Yes, and there's this thing that women turn against each other due to the patriarchy and all of this that's happened, right? That we are just like comparing, we're hitting on each other, jealousy, envy, especially these women that leave these relationships. They have trust issues because they have been so abused, their worth, their value, who they are. And when you come to a place that is safe, and women show you can trust and you can bond, you can have like a red tent, like back in the day, like sisterhood, you support each other. It's so healing too, not only for your group, for example, but for the feminine collective. It's because it creates a ripple effect, right? And it's just some things I wish, like I'm getting goosebumps all over, seriously. I wish I would have had that, because my journey of healing has been solitary. It's been alone. And like you, I went to therapy, and they were supposed to be very knowledgeable about codependency and narcissistic abuse, and I was not helped. Maybe it was something within me that was not open to it, but I just felt like I was stuck in the same, saying the same story, always the same. I didn't feel a change. I'm like, I feel stuck. And then I joined Codependents Anonymous, which is part of the Alcoholic Anonymous. They have CODA. It's called CODA. It's like a 12-step program. Wow. I found it and I was like, oh my God, this is what I need. I'm codependent. And I thought everything was my fault. At this point, I didn't really know. I started knowing that I was in an abusive relationship. I had no idea. I left a relationship. You had no idea. A year after, I didn't know I had been abused. I knew I didn't want to be here some days. I was heavily depressed. I didn't love myself. I didn't even know if I loved myself. I didn't know who I was. It was just such a blur. And I remember it started with getting to know myself, but I joined Coda, and they're not allowed to give you advice or anything. You just share your story. But it seemed like every week I shared the same story, how I felt. And I was like, well, I don't feel that change. I don't feel anything change in me. Like, what's going on? I felt stuck for so many months until I was like, okay, let's do a different type of thing. So I started taking ownership and accountability for my own healing and being my own advocate, being my own guru, life coach, healer, whatever. And I just went on YouTube. I started doing things. I started healing energy healings. I started healing my womb. I started healing the subconscious programming, then the inner child healing. And the biggest impact for me has been healing my feminine energy and my masculine energy. Yes. Because that was where the pivot happens, where I was so in my disempowered feminine, attracting these men, attracting all this low vibrational like situations and people and jobs. And it's when I was like, oh my God, like I want to be an empowered woman. How do I become that? So it was a lot of healing this feminine energy and learning when I'm in my shadow, when I'm not in my shadow, when I'm in my disempowered part of the feminine energy, which is the self-sacrificing, the people pleaser, the codependent. Oh man. And it's just like, need. Yes. So it's been, I don't know, I'm just wondering if you have also experience that when in your own healing.
Yes, it's so funny you brought up that the feminine energy and the disempowerment energy, because I feel I'm not trying to take away from the accountability of those who perpetrate against us, as women, but I just want to make sure, I just want to bring it right back to some core issues. A lot of times when we dismiss, as you stated, when we dismiss or we disempower or we subconsciously disempower our feminine energy, it creates a gateway for a lot of mess to come in, a lot of unwelcome behavior, toxicity, traumas to make their way in when we don't honor our feminine energy, our feminine truths, our feminine entitlement. Because I know the word entitlement has its own negative connotations, but I think as women, we are entitled to safety. We're entitled to feeling belonged. We're entitled to feeling loved and accepted. And that entitlement comes in when we recognize our worth and we push our femininity forward and kind of like, in a sense, create a barrier. You know what I'm trying to say though?
Yeah. And it's like also like combining the barrier, the boundaries, right? With the masculine energy that's the protection. So it's also like within ourselves. So like for me, I was so much in victimhood and I was so wounded. I had so much trauma, but I didn't know this. Okay. I did not know this. So when I left and I awakened and I learned all of this, I was like, oh my God, like I also have toxicity within me. And that was big for my ego. That was a big ego injury for me because I didn't want to own to that it was also my fault.
I have a question for you, because when you said you didn't recognize it, you didn't notice it. Well, was it because it was so normalized to you? Like, I'm just curious.
So the way that I'm feeling led to answer that is that there was a lot of gaslighting. That's it. I was made to feel that everything was my fault, even though I knew it wasn't my fault. I had evidence. I was made. He was so believable. He was so manipulative, and he was so good. It was a covert narcissist. So he was so skilled at gaslighting, making up all these lie stories that somehow everything turned out to be my fault. And I believed it because I was so brainwashed that everything was my fault. And I didn't know when I was in it that I was in a toxic, abusive relationship. Wow. I didn't know that. And I do say toxic because I actually felt toxic within my body. My health was impacted. My mental health was impacted. I felt
sick. Like you just felt sick.
I left. Oh yes. I felt like toxins. I had so many toxins. I was like, yeah, I felt toxic. It was a toxic situation. And I'm not even sorry to say he was a toxic human being. And we were toxic to each other. Not only that, because when you learn your wounding, when you learn, I was like, oh, that was a wound mate, not a soulmate, not a twin flame. He was a wound mate. We kind of merge because of our own woundings. And also, it takes a big toll on your ego when you own this, because you're like, oh, wow, what am I getting out of this relationship? I'm getting a benefit somehow because I'm still here. You know, when I was analyzing, I was like, why did I stay so long? And I went back too, because so much gaslighting. So that's when I didn't know. So when I learned about the red flags of narcissistic, covert narcissists specifically, I was numbed for a week because I couldn't believe it. It felt like everything was a lie. The relationship, it was just an illusion. It never really existed. It was not real. And that was really hard to overcome, that nothing was real. And everything he said to me was not real. So I was in shock, literally. And then I also started doing the reprogramming my nervous system and my cells, my DNA, everything, because everything changes. Like you
after trauma.
Yes, everything.
It's
at the biochemical level. Everything changes within you. So it's not only that you are impacted emotionally, have a broken heart, like leaving those relationships, it's a whole other type of breakup, right?
That we're not taught. We don't know why we're going through it.
No, you know? And I'm curious to know, because a lot of people, of the relatives of these women, especially mine, would be, just move on, get over it. You're too worth it. I'm like, of course I know, but then I don't know, you know? And it's like, how do you guys support these women also when everybody in their lives is like, oh, just move on, just get over it?
No, we tend to make sure we let women, but we make sure that women are well aware that this process or this journey or this sense of recovery is going to look different for everyone. It's going to be case by case, because everyone has their own origin. Everyone has their own generational story, and everyone's impact and trauma started at different stages. And there's different levels to it. It's different levels of how, some women can, endure some pain and move on and roll with the punches. And some women can endure some pain and just break her completely down. So we try not to come in with a playbook that we think fits all women. We just come with an open understanding that every story is going to look different. We're going to walk through, what it looks like to get to point A to point B, but we guarantee you it's not going to look linear. It's not going to look straight and narrow. We guarantee it'll be different, and we guarantee you're going to possibly go back to whoever you're familiar with, whatever that situation looks like. You might go back, because we as humans tend to go back to what's familiar. And if things are not familiar to us, we get scared, we get nervous. We're like, oh, retreat. And retreat is also part of the process. And if you do retreat, we welcome that. You retreat, let's go. You want to go back? Okay. I'm not going to call you anything less or deem you anything less of going back. I'm going to honor that, because we have to honor the good and the bad. They both have to have same level of significance, either we want to like it or not. And that's what we do. We just make sure women understand that, this process is going to look very funny and very different, and it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to honor how it looks like for you, for her, or whoever. We try to create that sense of that sense of comfort for them. I don't know if that works for your answer, but we try to create that.
And it also sounds like it's very empowering, no matter what the decision is for them. Even if they go back, it's like, hey, you're being sovereign in your decision. You have agency. You have a choice. And if you're choosing that, it's still empowerment, even though it's not what we, but it's still that, because they are making it for themselves, and we cannot. And I would assume, with your organization, you don't tell people what to do. It's like they have to find the answers within themselves. And if they choose to go, you have to honor that, because that's honoring themselves.
Mira, my philosophy, I always say that I don't save people, I help people. Okay, I'm not gonna be here rescuing Superman. No. Yo estoy aquí para ayudarla, pero para just to save you and rescue your feet. Because that creates that deviates me from being that that hero in the story. No, you are your own hero. So if I change that mentality, saying, yeah, I'm not your hero, I'm not going to save you, I can guide you, then that I put the responsibility back on her.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's beautiful because part of us being in those relationships too, I don't know if it happened for you, is that we wanted to save them, we wanted to fix them, we wanted to rescue them.
I
And it's
had that mentality when I started
yeah,
this way. So I know
yeah,
exactly what I
yes.
had. I walked in with
It's
that
like
mentality.
I'm gonna be the woman, I'm gonna be the one that's going to make him change.
You're gonna wear yourself out.
Oh my God. The funny thing is that when I was within that relationship, when I thought everything was up to me, I was reading all the books, I was journaling, I was trying to do healing that I thought, and he would always say, I don't understand why you go to therapy, why you read all these books, you're still the same. And I would just be so like hurt by it. But oh my gosh.
You just had to go. I mean, yep, that was your process, you know. It's I don't know.
And I read a book, and I got a book it was at the library even. And I got a book, and I don't remember the exact title. I wish I could, because this is such a good story, but it was something about how to change a man. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna change him. I was just so empowered reading my book. I read through the damn book. Toward the end of the chapter, it said, you cannot change someone, you have to change yourself. And I was just so mad
that whole time,
so angry, just because the book immediately led you to empower yourself, do the work for yourself. I was so angry.
I like that.
I'm like, I read it to change him. So that kind of, even though I don't feel that book really changed me, it sparked something within me that started my healing journey. Because that's
beautiful. I mean, like I said, books and those support groups and even conversations like this, these are seeds that are being planted, you know, and we are planted seeds. Women can come hear this, or women would, learn more about you, learn more about what we do, the work we do, and we are just planting the seeds and just being a resource, so I like that. I'm noticing a lot that you're saying, books have been a very integral part of your journey. And that's something that I need to do better on, because sometimes, I just get so caught up. I'm like, listen, yeah, I need to go back to book reading, because you know how you get so caught up in your own self and your own mind, like, I know this, whatever. Well, the book's don't tell me anything different. No, sometimes we need refreshers. We need to highlight that chapter again and go back and read it. So you sparked something in me that I need to go back and go back to those highlighted chapters.
Yeah, because I didn't, like I said, I didn't feel therapy helped me. I didn't know back then when I started my journey, when I learned about narcissistic abuse, there were only 4 people talking about it on YouTube. No books about it with the title. And then I read Codependent No More. I read so many books, and then I had so much anger within me, but I thought I was just an angry person. I was lashing out. I was snap, But when I started doing the healing, I understood that it was all the injustices, everything that I wouldn't speak, everything the boundaries that I didn't set, everything was just being stuffed within me. And that was creating this anger, which then led to, I was depressed, but I was so angry inside. And it was just like this
rage.
Yes, I felt like a pressure cooker. Yeah. So then what I learned is to treat anger as sacred. So I do a lot of anger release ceremonies, rituals within myself. So I have been able to release so much of stuff that I had within me. But I remember that he used to call me crazy. And he told so many people that I was crazy, that I was psycho, that I was possessive, that I was jealous.
That's their go-to. That's their go-to script, man. That's a go-to script. They have it's like, go ahead, I'm sorry, but that's
and then just smear campaigns, the things they say to you about you to other people. I used to care so much about what people thought of me back then, but it does have an impact. It does have an impact. Not only you're dealing with this breakup, you're trying to do the healing, but you're also trying to deal with the injustice of what everybody is not seeing. And whenever I would talk about my stories, I am not talking shit about him. I'm speaking the truth, my truth, my experience. I don't even mention him because he doesn't matter anymore in my life.
Right.
But it's that life lesson impacted me profoundly.
Wow. See, and that's what you needed. I mean, sometimes it's all about what we're allowing, what did we allow and what did we tolerate to happen for so long, and to its degrees, the levels, the degrees of tolerance that we have for those that, we share ourselves with. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because like I said, I didn't process it that way. I just felt like, it's me again. It's my fault. Like you said, I didn't have a codependency issue in a sense. I have more of just the allowance issue. I allowed and tolerated a lot. I had a high level of tolerance when it comes to a lot of BS that happened to me, and I think a lot of the allowance that I um, experience had a lot to do with not recognizing my thresholds, my non-negotiables, my sense of self-worth. If I realized my self-worth, if I realized what things I'm not going to negotiate with, or not going to tolerate with, and create like a hard stop on those, I probably wouldn't have been in the situations that I've been. But I never ever thought I needed to do that. I thought people walk around knowing to be good to people. I'm like, maybe people just don't walk around with that sense of, I'm going to make sure I don't hurt her feelings or break her heart, or that sense, or violate her. And I have to know that people are just not going to walk around with that moral compass. So that means we, like you said, we have to have those boundaries.
Yes, they're so important. And it's also like this, I don't know, somehow it's always tying back to me with the feminine masculine energy, because it is a balance in healing, right? It's creating that polarity within yourself, so you can also heal the parts of you that attract these people. And the boundaries for me is very masculine energy. And I didn't have the boundaries. I felt so weak. I feel very disempowered, very wounded, very in my victimhood. And the funny thing is that before the relationship, I was, you can say, a little cabrona. People would say like, oh, nobody messes with Mary. She's outspoken. Like, no, like a mí nadie me va a hacer eso. Yo nunca voy a estar con un hombre así. Si me
Conmigo no.
And I ended up in that relationship. And that was hard for me to know, how did I go from this cabrona to this woman? And like, how?
It can be confusing. Oh, you just sparked something in me. I'm like,
it's so confusing. And for me, it's like, well, this cabrona, because that is the word that I use for it, right? They say that in mi pueblo. It was very toxic masculine, like no man can do this to me, I'm never gonna allow anyone. But it was very wounded, toxic masculine energy within me. It's like, I can do it all, hustle, go work, I'm gonna fix it, I'm gonna do this. I felt like that energy within me. And then somehow that was broken. I don't know, somehow it was broken.
Like, nice try.
Yeah. And then I went to the opposite, the polarity of that, which is the wounded feminine energy. And the journey has been like, okay, how do I regain my power? How do I regain my power as a woman? How do I embody this loving feminine person that I truly am? Because if I used to think I was a horrible person, I used to think I had dark energy and my heart was so dark and my soul was so dark. I used to think that. And I had an Akashic Records reading, and she said, oh, your soul is so beautiful. And I started crying. I was like, you're the first person who has told me that. And like somebody who actually were looking into my soul, into internally, my life. I was like, I've always felt like this. And she's like, no, you just are so wounded that you created this mask of being a bitch or a cabrona. And you got into these relationships, and that's what you needed to tear down that mask, tear down that version of you that is not true. You just made her up because she helped you through childhood. She helped you through a very painful high school experience here in the United States. So I was protecting my heart, and I was like, okay, I'm like, I don't want to walk around wounded. I don't want to walk around thinking I don't need a man. I can do it all. I don't need help, because I think that's another reason why I stopped seeking professional help to help me, because I'm like, I'm going to do it all. I'm going to fix myself. I'm going to be my savior. But I ended up, I'm like, no, I want to have an open heart. I want to still be loving. I don't want my essence to die because of a stupid relationship or a situation, right? I don't want to become bitter, because I became bitter after that.
Yeah, that's what the anger comes in.
Stoic, the anger, I was just like, I had so much hate within me, and it was just this work of softening, like coming back to me, my essence, knowing who I am, my truth, knowing that I have a beautiful heart, that I was just so afraid of getting hurt that I just built all this walls, And it's just been a beautiful journey.
You know what? Like I said, you hit on something. I'm sorry, I just keep saying you hit on something that's so goes back to my childhood, because you're saying that you were hard. You had to, come in with being a tough woman, come in being, cabrona, like, I have all the answers and I have all the resolutions. I can get through this. I don't need any help. I think now that I'm looking back, I'm hearing you and I'm looking back and reflecting on me. I feel like I had that speech, that narrative in my head. I think that was a learned behavior for me, because my mother was like that with my father. Even though my father was he was very passive. My mother's the aggressor. She was very aggressive. And I learned that from her. I learned to be tough and, just put some context to who I am. I am Afro-Latina, everyone who's listening in. Pero if you look at me, I look like a black woman, but you say Panameña, okay? So back in my culture, Centro Americana, you just have the Caribbean feel, the Latin Caribbean, my mother, she was always that, she was a force. The only moment I recognized my mom's feminine side, let's say that, is when she beautified herself. But other than that, she had herramienta behind herramienta, tool after tool. Come with me and I'll kill you. Mess with me and she always had like conmigo no, like a tough woman.
She was like always ready to fight, like the warrior.
Fight or flight, warrior. Don't come with me. She basically was, like you said, that warrior with lipstick. She was like ready. And I walked that walk. I walked with that energy everywhere I go. And I noticed when you said, when you soften yourself and found softness and beauty and softness, beauty and ease, let's just say that with the feminine energy that comes with beauty and ease, that sense of the fight, the having to make a stance and let people know that you're not the one you're gonna, creating creating your warrior cry is not necessary for every situation. And sometimes it comes to a place that if we're going to come in with that warrior cry, that masculine energy, let's say that for this instance, we have to dig in deep. And I had to realize and dig in deep on how it was serving me. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to come in with this masculine energy, how is it serving me? I'm like trying to figure out. Dun, 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 dun. I'm not getting there. Like, how is it serving me? Okay, good. Let's try the softness. How is it serving me? I am relaxed. I'm at ease. I can think clearly. I can play chess. I can make my next move my best moves. I can create those boundaries without being so disrespectful or without being rude. I could create boundaries and still welcome loving spirits, loving energy. I don't know. It's just not that everyone's journey is going to look like that, picture perfect like that, or look not picture perfect, but just look like that. But it's just a different mindset shift that can happen when we tap into SF. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah. I gotta think about that, my mom.
Yeah, right now that you said we the warrior archetype, for me, it's like we have 3 archetypes. Well, we have so many. We have so many versions of ourselves. At any point, I own it. I'm a wild cyclical woman. I have so many voices inside of my head. No, I am not bipolar. I don't have a multiple personality disorder. I think it's it. And the way I see it is different archetypes or versions of me within me. Sometimes the warrior comes on, the goddess. So for me, it's like the 3 main ones that I work with when I'm healing, not only me, I help my clients. It's the goddess, which is the feminine essence, the goddess. So that's been the journey. How do I embody this goddess? Because I'm like, I don't know how to be in my body. I don't feel sensual. I don't feel sexy. I was so like out of tune with my body. How do I reconnect with my body? How do I find beauty within me when I look in the mirror? How do I love myself? Like, it was just that. It was so hard for me at the beginning. And then there's this other part. It's like a triangle, right? Like a triangle. So it's like the goddess. My masculine side, I don't like saying masculine. I say the fierce feminine.
Okay, I like that.
Yes, because I don't feel like when I think masculine, I automatically think of a man. I do.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but I do. So for me, like, no, I am a sun in Aries. I am a rising Gemini, and I am a moon in
I'm a Gemini.
Sagittarius.
Uh-huh.
So I'm also, I have a lot of fire within me. And then, so I'm very fiery, I'm very feisty. And all of that was taken away when I was in those relationships. That's why I couldn't understand. So when I started doing the healing and really embodying my essence, it's like, I'm really feisty, I'm fiery, but not in a toxic way. Simply, I own my truth. I want to speak my truth. I want to help women be empowered into being self-expressed into who they are without being.
You own your presence. Your presence is made known.
Yeah. So for me, it's like the fierce feminine side of me. Like the masculine energy within me is fierce. So I'm like, oh, fierce feminine. That feels more better to me than masculine energy.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. And then there's the other part when we are in our triggered or whatever is our inner child. It's the little us inside. And that's like the one that's running the show 95% of the time, where we are an autopilot in our subconscious. And only 5% of the time you're conscious of what you're doing, right? So it's like this triad that really has helped me be integrated, feel more integrated, feel more embodied. Because sometimes I still have moments when I get upset, angry, when I react out of impulsivity. And it's like, oh, that's my inner child. I'm like, what is going on? And then I just, it brings so much awareness.
Yeah, it's like it goes back. It gives you that sense of connection to realizing what's happening in your body. You read that book, Women Run with the Wolves, right? By Clarissa. Her name or her last name. That's like my Bible to me. That's when I heard like the archetype woman. I'm like, it's a Bible to me. Women Run with the Rules, written by the Latina woman. She broke down all the aspects of healing, all the way to being that warrior and being even the wolf pack. It's just so wonderful. It's a thick book, but it's like a Bible to me. And I often go back to that book every now and then to kind of like give myself a check and balance. In a sense, like I'm forgetting something, or I am, starting to sense that a little bit of dysregulation. Because I think that when we experience a lot of trauma or disruption of our ease, our feminine energy, I call it my ease, because for those who don't know, my ease. So if we experience a lot of disruption in that, I feel like a lot of times that we lose a little touch of what it feels to be soft again. So, and that's when the trauma comes in. So like I said, I'm so glad that you brought those 3 points, those 3 pillars up, because we all live in those spaces.
Yeah. And it's so
one place or another.
And it's so hard when we're triggered or activated, or when we are in that trauma state. It's so hard to come out of that consciously, right? Because we're so triggered. And it's because our nervous system is all activated. You are in sympathetic state. It's so hard for you to calm down. And a lot of times people are like, meditate. I'm like, that doesn't work when you're activated.
I don't want to hear it.
For me, what works is anger release work, is temper tantrum techniques. I do EFT when I'm angry, and I just start tapping. EFT for me has been so powerful, but I just do my chin. I don't do the whole points. For some reason, this works. The chin just works. And I just start saying whatever, like lashing out, whatever. I do it on my own because I'm like, this is the way to release the anger. I don't have to lash out at people. I'll go and do my inner work, and then I come out and I'm in a better mindset, in a better state to respond or not respond, or to say something or not say anything. But a lot of times it's like, it's your responsibility to take care of your feelings when you're triggered. Yes, right. You can do something to trigger you, but at the end of the day, it's you.
I like it. I like the different, and I never thought about it. Like, what do I do when I'm feeling triggered? I think I just invert I internalize, and I get real quiet. I become a hermit. Become very hermit. I feel very observant, and I feel like I become mute in a sense. Like I just become selectively just I don't want to speak to anyone. I just become just like, la voz se va, like just no tengo habla. I don't have anything.
Yeah. And that happens to me. And what I realized is that I was too much in my head, thinking, overthinking, journaling, and my anger was in my body. Like the trigger was in my body. That's when I got up. I was like, okay, let's do this. So I do my anger my energy healing's in a different way. So I do the tapping and I start speaking whatever it is, because that helps the throat chakra. That helps like speak up what you are holding inside, you know? And then I just start putting angry music. There's this, like, if you go YouTube and if you put angry music, literally, there is a YouTube video. Somebody created it. Thank God for that person. It's beautiful music, but it's just like a heavy metal music, but it's called angry music. Literally. I put that and I just start smashing. If there's a pillow, I usually go to the garage right now. So there's bags with clothes. I just put them. I just stomp. I dance. Like I do a lot of like movement with my body. After that, sometimes I just start crying. The release is so powerful. And then I'm so happy. And then I'm like so happy. So I was like, wow, it's like powerful, because I used to spend days with holding things in, just thinking about it and feeling like crap. And right now it's like, no, let's move quickly through this, but let's also feel it. Let's welcome it. Honor it. It's not like, oh, I just want to bypass it and get it over with. Like, no, that's not my journey. But meaning
it came for a reason.
I don't want to stay stuck for days with that situation in me. So I just like moved through it as fast as I could. And it's just been beautiful for me.
I always tell, that's amazing, because you know what, I always encourage people that, I counsel on, like, welcome, like you said, welcome those negative energies, honor them, let them come in, let them come out, but don't let them stay. Okay. They have to come in, release it and feel it, because that's you human. Let them go and then move on. Find something that you do, because you have flashbacks. I don't know about you, but I have flashbacks, of some like really bad experiences or something that I've done or something that happened to me. That's trauma. That's part of the trauma, the flashbacks, right? So I get some of the visualization and some of the intrusive thoughts will come in, and then emotions will come in, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? It's coming. I'm not going to get mad and try to avoid it. Like, don't fight it. So I just like have to come out, let it go through. How long it's going to be here? And just process it, like you said, and just breathe through it, or not meditate, but, do something active to put, to help push that feeling through. But you got to welcome it, like you said.
Yeah, it's different. So if different emotions for me have a different type of healing modality. Like if it's anger, things like anxiety, especially, is through active work. If it's sadness, like I'm sad, I'm heartbroken, that's a different type of healing work. I will do, I think, womb healing. I would do Reiki. I would do like a yoni egg to release all the trauma stored in my womb. That's what I just did. I'm going through a divorce right now. So that's what I had to do. I was like, I'm releasing everything. And it's like, you put the yoni egg and then you do the energy healing and everything that's in the egg. It's a rose quartz, the one that I have. And that's another healing. So it depends, and it's different for a lot of emotions. They're intuitive. My healing modalities are intuitive. Yeah, and I just had to work with what works for me, what makes me feel back at home in my emotional state, which is joyful. I'm very silly. I'm very happy. And for the longest time, I didn't even know what was my home state. My home state used to be angry, resentful, depressed, bitter. And I was like, oh my God, even like there's moments that I have come back to that. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel like me. I miss me. And it's like, oh my God, my new home state now is abundance, is joy. Yes, I'm still sad sometimes throughout the day, angry, frustrated, but who I am today is so different that I'm like, oh my God, how did I go so many years like that?
Like that, you're like, how did I make you? Because you were young and your body was able to take some of those beatings. As we get older, our body can only take a certain amount of damage, some of that hits, and I'm learning so much through this, because it's so funny, and not funny, but it's so ironic that you say that, because many times something I have to practice on, you just said it, like for different emotions that come in, that travel, let's say the moves that travel through our bodies, require different modalities on how to treat it, because they're traveling in different parts of our body. I can't treat the way I feel down in my womb the same way I feel in my head or my mind, like you said, or in my throat. And I think a lot of times, like I said, there's so much work that comes. There's work that comes with healing. And a lot of times that it's like starting over. in life, right? And a lot of times we don't want to welcome it, or it becomes so much, it's just discouraging altogether, right? But like you said, if we can just not use one modality or one form of healing for all parts of our body, and just figure out what parts of our body is wounded, and analyze that wounded part, and just find out what works for that wounded area, instead of trying to figure it all together and making it a whole overwhelming experience. And I'm, to this day, just hearing you now, I never put it in that perspective that makes sense, because if we're looking at scriptures, we find out different scriptures for different situations, different books for different situations. Doctor prescribes different things for different situations. We should also approach healing and emotional healing with that same modality as well too.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Yeah. You're like, you just sparked something within me.
Spark something, because I'm like, either I have been doing it and not noticing it, or I just haven't been pronounced that way, you know? So I'm so glad you brought that out. I hope those are listening can understand that too, because
and so many of our woundings, like feeling unworthy, you're gonna treat it different than well, they're tied to not enough, undeservingness, like all of that. Somehow they connect, but at the same time, they're so different because there's so many situations and emotions attached to each of those wounds. And all those wounds, for me, are core wounds, like unworthiness, not enough, feeling neglected, or like all those come from unmet needs. There was an unmet something that was not met when you were little, created this wound, you created this mask to protect that part of you, and it stayed frozen in a way, and you become an adult carrying this frozen wounds within you with that situation, that emotion, that time, and then you just carry all this baggage, right? So when we start dating, oh, hello, that's when they come up.
They're right there.
And if somebody abandons you, oh my God, I remember when my dad wasn't there for me. I remember when this happened, when I felt abandoned, and like everything just snowballs. So I do feel like it's a good idea to look at it separate, but also whole, because it is all part of what made you. But it's a different type of modality for me, at least. Every tool, everything that I use, it's different for every wound that I've ever had.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I mean, it brings so much clarity, and it's refreshing to hear it that way, because like there's so much material out there, and so many women speaking from a place of, you know, teaching the wound trauma and all of the energies that come along with what we welcome when we're being traumatized and whatnot. But sometimes breaking it down in the simplest terms can create a sense of someone feeling the courage to go seek the assistance they need. Because when it's like this, when things become too difficult or too overwhelming, you're like, forget it. I'm gonna be more stressed out, or I become re-traumatized, because we have to watch out ourselves too. Re-traumatization is so real. A lot of people don't recognize they're being traumatized or re-traumatized, because I ask them like, oh, you went to a therapy session or you went to a support group session. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't go again. It was really bad experience. I'm like, you know, that's kind of low-key re-traumatization. What happened? And we start breaking things down. I'm like, there's a lot of people re-traumatizing people out here. You know, so we got to be very conscious of them. So I'm so glad you broke it down that way, because
and there's a lot of like EFT is one of those modalities that you don't have to tell the story. You don't have to remember. There's like, for me, I do a modality where it's inner child healing. I take myself back to that situation. So I relive the situation in my body, because I am able to handle it. But there's clients, like you said, they're so fragile in a way. They're not ready for that. They're not ready to talk about it. So EFT, you can just talk about the emotions. You can talk about different things, and it still would have the same effect. That's one of the beauties about it. Yeah, you don't have to retell the story, because a lot of people, and even when they go to support groups, hearing other women, it triggers something within them. Yeah,
it provokes some unwelcoming energy.
Yeah, even with your friends. I was texting with a friend the other day, and she said to me, wow, what you just said to me reminded me of something, and now I'm feeling the pain. But she's ready for that, to have that awareness. And she's like, wow, I didn't even know that was still within me. But it's like, oh, we also have to be a little careful navigating those conversations with people, and be trauma informed and know about it, because it can be pretty traumatizing for so many women to go through the same thing, like hearing it, you know, or just telling their story again.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why it's so important that when we open, we expect people to be brave and open them up, open their story up, open their lives to us. I always tell some of our members that when we open, we have to close. Okay, so if we're going to honor people opening their brave, courageous story, or brave, I call it brave vulnerability, because that's vulnerability and that's braveness, and that we have to help make sure we close that wound and make sure they're able to process whatever it is they need to process it. So
Like closing the
very
energetic
important.
loops, closing the
Yes,
energetic
so
loops.
you gotta close them.
This has been a beautiful conversation. I'm so happy that you
Yeah.
were able to connect with me. And I just wanted to ask like a few more questions before we
Yeah, go ahead.
conversation. What is your truth today?
My truth today. Oh, I have so many, but my truth today is I deserve peace, I deserve ease, and I deserve safety. Those are the things that come up to me lately because, I just, been through some weird, difficult situations and the trauma, all that's happened on TV and all that's happened around us. I'm like, okay, what can I do about me right now? I deserve peace, I deserve ease and safety. That's my truth today.
Beautiful. And it's a
Mhm.
great reminder to also do that for us. Like, what do I deserve? Like, what are my non-negotiables? Like, what are the things
Yeah.
I am not gonna put up with? What do I
Listen.
want in a new partnership, not only with a man, but with
Yeah.
anyone I'm
Any
in contact with, right? Like a
Mhm.
friendship, even a friendship. There's friendships that
Yeah.
are super toxic. So it's like
Oh,
deserve safety, feeling happy, joyful, like
listen.
feeling like just
I
excited.
can be relaxed. I don't have to feel tense,
Yes.
or just nervous or uncomfortable or insecure. Like I'm not doing that. I'm
Yeah.
not doing it anymore. Like, no, if I feel unease, I just can't do this. I'm not.
Yeah, no, yeah, no.
Ya no puedo más, no.
And so what is one I guess ritual that you do every day to stay in your truth, in your alignment, in your essence, and in your power?
Mhm. You know what? It's very simple. I listen to music. I listen to music that empowers me, listen to music that makes me tap back into my side. Music is therapeutic to me. I cannot tell you, it's just such a necessary tool for me. Even some of the verses or the songs or whatever, it just does something to my body. So I do listen to music. That's something that I do for my mental and emotional sensitivity and need. And physically, I move. I work out a lot, so movement is everything to me. If I would say if I don't move, I don't heal.
Oh my God.
If I'm not moving or sleeping, I'm not healing.
Mhm.
So I need to move. I'm going to get some sleep. I know how I am, but the movement, I'm like, okay. So those things I really, really take very, very significant importance to. Music for me and movement, the two M&Ms.
Amazing. Yeah, music
Mhm.
for me has been such a powerful tool for healing,
I know.
especially because you know how some men dedicate songs to you. So when he used to do that, I used to hate the songs. Like at the like after it, I couldn't even listen to the songs. And when I started healing and really getting over him, I was able to listen to the song.
Oh, wow.
And
Mhm,
sometimes the songs would bring up memories and I would be crying, but I was releasing. For me, I'm like, this is healing. I'm like, I'm not
mhm,
suffering, I'm healing. And
mhm.
I'm to the point that I can listen to the songs and it has no attachment to him.
Wow.
So
Seems
that's
good.
yeah. And now it's like, like I use it for healing different emotions. I listen at the gym. It's just like
Mhm.
it's so healing.
Good. That's awesome. That's good. That's good. That's become a long way. So
Yeah, yeah,
pretty,
yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. So okay. So last question is obviously where
Thanks.
can anyone find you, connect
Oh.
with you? I know you
Mhm.
mentioned it a little bit at the beginning,
Mhm.
but if they want to be part of your community,
Thanks.
where can everybody go and find you? Everything's going to be in the show notes, but I just want you to say it.
Yeah. So we are on mostly all social media outlets as Yo Soy Ella Inc. And Yo Soy is YOSOYELLA Inc. INC. So you can find us on all social media outlets on Yo Soy Ella Inc. And then our website is www.yosoyella.org. And if you're interested in partaking part of our healing community, our sisterhood, or our community of women, let's just say that, right? You can definitely contact us through our website or our Instagram page, and just hit up email or contact directly or message us. We're really easy to contact, and I'll respond back to you within 24 to 48 hours, but I'm here.
So, one question. Now that you're saying this, is this only local for
No,
us in
we do.
Chicago, or this
No,
is,
this
okay.
is local. I mean, we're based in Chicago, but we go to all the suburbs, you know, in Chicago. We travel out, but mostly, well, now during COVID, right? We've been doing things virtually. We've had wonderful workshops in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, in Barbados, and
You're international.
yeah. So we've done workshops there and all over the place. Even in Mexico, we've done workshops there too, virtually. So we've been pretty dope, and some in Canada too. So we've been working
Oh
here
wow,
and there.
you are international now. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
in the
I
sense,
didn't know
yes.
this. So this is amazing.
Mhm,
Okay, so anyone like here that's not from local, like us,
no, you can
totally
contact us. Yeah,
Oh,
you can contact us,
amazing.
and we'll host a workshop, or we'll do an individual counseling, or I call it a individual healing session with us through discussion. We can do that virtually from wherever you part of the world you are. We're available. We have signal or Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
I just want to say something else right now that you said counseling. Just because I have to say this, just because therapy didn't work for me per se, it doesn't mean it's not an amazing tool. It totally is for so many women. And for me, it's like an integrative approach of different modalities that helps you really heal and feel whole again.
Yeah.
So just wanted to say that, because I don't want people to be like, you're against therapy. I am not.
No,
Maybe the therapist at that time, it was not the best fit for me. I'm not close to it. I'm just, it wasn't for me.
It didn't connect to you, and it's completely okay. And support groups don't connect to people too. So it's like whatever it is, or Reiki, or any type of spiritual practice may not connect to a lot of people. It's what works best for you and your healing. That's what we go back to what we were saying, that everyone's journey looks completely different. Totally. So if people don't want to talk to someone individually, we always encourage them to go to support groups, and it's also cost effective too. If you cannot afford therapy, because therapy lately is costly. Wow. So costly, and so many wait lists out there. Support groups are very cost effective. Our support group is completely free. So we have that resource for you if you want to talk through, any emotional or mental condition that you're experiencing. We're here. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for connecting with me, telling us your story, why you started your organization, your community. I'm so glad to have met a Latina that is so into empowerment and also about feminine masculine energy, that you were able to be open to share this conversation with me. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for reminding me. I'm overjoyed, and I'm just loving this conversation, and I learned a lot here. So really, really awesome. I would you should also, like, in the comments, put the books and maybe it could be a good resources for everyone. But no, I thank you so much, Mary. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Well, have a good day.
Same to you. Cuídate, okay? Bye. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you so much for being part of this conversation for Feminine Truth Podcast. This podcast is for you, for me, for us, for the Feminine Collective. Thank you so much for spending your time and energy with us. Share on Instagram and Facebook stories what resonated with you. And if you're listening to this, and for anyone to get a hold of this podcast at Feminine Truth Podcast, and if you feel called to, leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know how this has felt for you listening to the podcast. And the episodes are going to be every Tuesday, so I cannot wait to see you next time. Sending so much love.